Every single second across the globe, over 350 slices of pizza are eaten. It is the ultimate comfort food, a multi-billion-dollar global phenomenon. But did you know that just a few centuries ago, pizza was looked down upon as disgusting, dirty, and strictly a food for the poorest of the poor? The wealthy elite of Europe wouldn't even touch it. So how did a cheap flatbread from the slums of Naples rise to conquer the entire world? Today we uncover the delicious, dramatic, and secret history of pizza.
Before there were delivery apps, before there were pizza boxes, before there were arguments about pineapple, there was fire and bread, and the unstoppable human desire to put things on top of both of them. The story of pizza is not the story of one invention. It is the story of 10,000 years of human hunger, ingenuity, trade, and war, all baked together into something extraordinary. It begins not in Italy, but in the ancient world, around 10,000 BCE. In what is now modern-day Iraq, Iran, and Syria, humans first learned to cultivate wheat. They ground grain into rough flour, mixed it with water, and baked it on hot stones. Flatbread, one of humanity's oldest foods, was born. But these early bakers did something remarkable. They didn't eat their bread plain. They topped it. Olive oil, herbs, dates, onions, whatever the land provided. This was not yet pizza, but the idea, a portable, edible platform for other flavors, was already alive. Ancient Egyptians, around 3000 BCE, were among the world's first professional bakers. Archaeologists have uncovered bakeries near the pyramids of Giza, evidence that the workers building the great monuments were fed on bread, topped with onions, garlic, and radishes. Even then, someone was asking the eternal question, what should we put on this? But it is in ancient Greece where our story finds its next crucial chapter. Around the 6th century BCE, Greek soldiers and citizens alike consumed a dish they called plakis, a flatbread baked with toppings including olive oil, cheese, garlic, and herbs. It was hearty, it was portable, it was cheap, and it was everywhere. The Greek historian Herodotus even wrote of soldiers carrying these seasoned flatbreads on military campaigns. The world's first battlefield food delivery. The Greeks also established colonies along the coast of what is now southern Italy, a region they called Magna Graecia, meaning Greater Greece. And wherever the Greeks went, their food came with them. The seeds of pizza had been planted, literally, in Italian soil. As Rome rose to dominate the Mediterranean world, its citizens developed a sophisticated food culture, and a version of the topped flatbread became central to Roman street life. Romans called it panis vocatus, bread baked in the hearth. We know a descendant of it today as focaccia. Roman soldiers, bakers, and commoners all ate variations of this bread, topped with olive oil and salt at its most basic, or adorned with cheese, olives, honey, bay leaves, and even garum, a pungent fermented fish sauce that Romans put on nearly everything. A Roman cookbook from the 4th century CE, the Apicius, contains recipes for flatbreads topped with layers of flavor that would not feel entirely foreign to a modern pizza lover. And then, on the 24th of August in 79 CE, Vesuvius erupted. The volcanic ash that buried the city of Pompeii also preserved it perfectly. And among its excavated streets, archaeologists have found something remarkable. Ancient pizzerias, thermopolia, Roman fast food shops, line the streets of Pompeii like storefronts in a modern city. These were the restaurants of the ancient world, serving hot food to citizens who had no kitchens in their apartments. Topped flatbreads were among the most commonly sold items. 2,000 years later, the world's oldest version of your local pizza joint still stands, frozen in volcanic rock. In fact, a fresco uncovered in Pompeii appears to show a flat, round bread topped with fruits, spices, and what may be an early form of cheese, displayed as part of a feast. Scholars have debated whether to call it a proto-pizza. The debate, like a great pizza, is ongoing. When Rome fell in 476 CE, centuries of culinary sophistication fractured across the continent. But the people of the Italian peninsula kept their bread, kept their ovens, and kept topping what they baked. Through the Middle Ages, flatbreads topped with cheese, oil, and local ingredients remained a staple of southern Italian cooking, particularly in the Kingdom of Naples. A crowded, vibrant port city on the western coast, Neapolitan peasants, known as lazzaroni, survived largely on simple, cheap food. A topped flatbread, sold by street vendors and eaten on the go, was a cornerstone of their diet. But there was still something missing. The one ingredient without which modern pizza cannot exist: the tomato. The tomato is native to the Americas, cultivated by the Aztecs and other Mesoamerican civilizations for thousands of years. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the New World in the 16th century, they brought many things back to Europe. Among them, the tomato. It arrived in Spain around 1521. It reached Italy by the mid-1500s, and Europeans were terrified of it. The tomato is a member of the nightshade family, and in 16th century Europe, that family had a reputation. Cousins of the tomato included deadly nightshade and mandrake, plants associated with poison and witchcraft. Wealthy Europeans refused to eat tomatoes. They grew them as ornamental garden plants. Some believed the red fruit caused madness, fever, and death. But the poor of Naples had no such luxury of suspicion. By the late 16th and early 17th centuries, Neapolitan peasants were eating tomatoes and discovering what the Aztecs had known for centuries: that the tomato, cooked down with olive oil and salt, becomes something magnificent. Someone, history has not preserved their name, spread that tomato sauce on their flatbread. And in that moment, in a Neapolitan alley, pizza as we know it was born. By the 18th century, Naples was one of the largest cities in Europe, teeming, chaotic, hungry, and pizza was everywhere. Neapolitan pizza makers, called pizzaioli, set up shops and street stalls throughout the city. Their product was fast, filling, and cheap, a working-class staple. Visitors from northern Italy and other parts of Europe were often appalled by what they saw. One 18th century travel writer described Neapolitan pizza as, and I quote, "disgusting food for the people of the streets," a phrase that, with time, would become the highest possible compliment. The classic Neapolitan pizza of this era was simple: a thin, hand-stretched dough, blistered and charred from a scorching wood-fired oven, topped with tomato, garlic, olive oil, and if you could afford it, anchovies or lard. No mozzarella yet. That was still a luxury. Then came 1889, and a queen, and a story so perfect it almost seems invented. But historians believe it to be true. King Umberto I and Queen Margherita of Savoy visited Naples. The queen, curious about the local food she had heard so much about, requested a selection of pizzas be prepared for her. Rafael Esposito, the most celebrated pizzaiolo in Naples, was summoned. He prepared 3 varieties, but it was the third that the queen favored above all others. It was topped with tomato, fresh mozzarella, and basil, the colors of the Italian flag: red, white, and green. Esposito named it in her honor, Pizza Margherita. Whether the story is entirely accurate, the result is undeniable. The Pizza Margherita became a symbol of Neapolitan pride. Between 1880 and 1920, more than 4 million Italians immigrated to the United States, fleeing poverty, escaping conflict, chasing the promise of a new world. They brought with them their language, their faith, their music, and their food. Among the first recorded pizzerias in America was Lombardi's, opened in 1905 in New York City's Little Italy by Gennaro Lombardi, a Neapolitan immigrant. He sold pizza to the Italian immigrant workers of Lower Manhattan. For decades, pizza remained largely an immigrant food, beloved within Italian-American communities but unfamiliar to most Americans. Then came World War II. American GIs stationed in Italy discovered pizza on a massive scale. Hundreds of thousands of young men from cities, farms, and small towns across America ate it in the streets of Naples, Rome, and beyond. And they loved it. When they came home hungry for it. The 1950s changed everything. Pizza exploded across America. In 1943, Ike Sewell opened Pizzeria Uno in Chicago, introducing a revolutionary variation. Deep dish pizza, thick crust, towers of cheese and sauce. An invention as American as the city that created it. In 1958, Frank and Dan Carney opened a small pizza restaurant in Wichita, Kansas. They called it Pizza Hut. In 1960, Tom Monahan and his brother bought a struggling pizza shop in Ypsilanti, Michigan. He named it Domino's. Pizza was no longer an immigrant food. It was American food. From America, pizza spread to every corner of the planet, and everywhere it landed, it transformed. In Japan, pizza arrived in the 1970s and was immediately reimagined. Japanese pizza makers topped their pies with corn, mayonnaise, squid, teriyaki chicken, and potato. It wasn't fusion confusion. It was genuine creativity. Japan now has one of the highest rates of pizza consumption per capita in the world. In Brazil, pizza became a national obsession. Sao Paulo alone has more than 15,000 pizzerias and hosts an annual pizza championship. Brazilians eat pizza at midnight. They eat it with chocolate on top. They treat it with the seriousness of a national treasure. In India, pizza wears saffron and paneer. In Ethiopia, it carries injera-inspired flavors. In Australia, it comes topped with kangaroo and beetroot. In South Korea, it arrives loaded with bulgogi and corn. Every culture that encountered pizza did what humans have always done with great food. They made it their own. Today, pizza is the most popular food on Earth. Global pizza industry revenue exceeds $150 billion annually. In the United States alone, 3 billion pizzas are sold every year, about 40 pizzas per person. NASA has even developed 3D printed pizza for astronauts in space. The first food to leave Earth's atmosphere and still carry the soul of Naples. But even as pizza went global and industrial, something remarkable happened. People came home. In 2017, UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, added the art of the Neapolitan pizzuolo to its list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The hand gestures, the dough techniques, the wood fire temperatures, recognized as a cultural treasure worthy of preservation alongside opera and ancient craft traditions. Around the world, a new generation of pizza makers is returning to slow fermentation, to ancient grain flours, to the blistered simplicity of a true margherita. They are asking not, how do we make pizza faster, but how do we make it truer? The craft is being reclaimed, the tradition honored. 10,000 years ago, a human being put something on a piece of flatbread and held it over a fire. They didn't know they were inventing anything. They were just hungry. That hunger has carried through every civilization, every empire, every ocean crossing, every immigrant dream, every midnight craving, every argument about what belongs on a pizza and what absolutely does not. Pizza is not just food. It is a record of human history, of trade and migration, of poverty and creativity, of war and homecoming, of the extraordinary things that happen when cultures meet across a table. It began in ancient ovens on the shores of the Mediterranean, and it has never, not once, stopped being exactly what it was always meant to be. Something shared, something warm, something that brings people together.